The War Amps have produced a number of excellent documentaries. We're pleased to feature them on our channel, and one of them is The Blue Puttees. So Bill Hampson with me, who is an historian, a military historian, has talked about Thomas Ricketts, one of the youngest people to ever be awarded a Victoria Cross, and coincidentally he came from the Blue Puttees regiment as well.
Right, he did, yes. The history behind the blue puttee is the fact that the puttees are things that they wrap around the legs, and in Newfoundland they didn't have karki, and so they made them out of blue wool instead of karki.
That's a fascinating piece of history.
Yeah.
What about Ricketts' history? Did he lie about his age, first of all?
Well, yeah, most people, in most cases, yeah, with the younger people, that they look older than they are in age, chronological age, yes, for sure, yeah. Thomas Ricketts was one of those, and Thomas Ricketts, VC, was born April 15th, 1901, deceased February 10th, 1967, St. John's, Newfoundland. After the war, Ricketts studied pharmacy and opened for business on Water Street. Now, Water Street is kind of an interesting place. It's right along the harbor, and just about every maritime city near the ocean has a Water Street.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons. He was the youngest recipient in a combat role to receive the Victoria Cross. On February 10th, 1967, he was given a state funeral by the province of Newfoundland and Labrador, and was buried in the Anglican Church Cemetery in Forest Road in St. John's. Today, a plaque marks the site of the pharmacy. Thomas Ricketts' service medals can be found at the National War Museum in Ottawa. Ricketts won the Victoria Cross. He's a recipient of the 1914 Star, the British War Medal, 1914-1920, the Victory Medal, 1914-1919, the Croix de Guerre with Star, the George VI Coronation Medal, 1937, and the Queen Elizabeth Coronation Medal, 1953.
That's quite incredible, all those honors, and a very, very brave man. The story is really something to read, which brings us to the point that, Bill, you have a number of military books. Some are published now, others to come. Right. Where will people be able to find these books, and who do you hope your audience will be? Well,
the books that I'm publishing are histories pertaining to Canadian military forces per se. We sort of have a tendency to undermine our military history and kind of don't pay it as much attention as we would other historical events. In the United States, that they perpetuate their military war accomplishments and their heroes and whatever. We sort of underplay them, but my attempt is to sort of establish a foundation, a research foundation for other people to sort of carry on after my books have been published, to sort of enlarge upon what I've done as far as an endeavor goes. Some of my books are at the Royal Military College in Kingston, Ontario, two sets.
Well, it's certainly a labor of love. I can see this tome, which is only one of them, the Royal Canadian Armoured Corps, 1900 to 2006, which is volume 3. And it's just incredible to see the history that you've gathered. When we talk about Remembrance Day, you know, we know that often people remember the two great wars. What about Korea, and why is it known as the Forgotten War?
Well, it followed shortly after World War II, and a lot of the Canadian members of the contingent were ex-military. There was a small percentage of them had non-military experience, but a lot of the officers and senior NCOs had war experience in World War II. It was started in 1950 with the invasion by North Korea into South Korea, and one of the famous units that was there was the 2nd Battalion PPCLI. They were, along with the Australians, were to hold a mountain pass while the remainder of the UN forces retreated through the Capion Valley, and the Patricias, as a result of their exploits, won a presidential citation for holding their ground during this particular engagement. The Australians and the Americans were forced to withdraw to another location, but the Canadians steadfast with Colonel Jim Stone, and they held their ground, and as a result, prevented the Chinese from invading Seoul, the city of South Korea.
Mm-hmm. And forgotten because it was a short duration? It was not...
It was a short duration, absolutely. It was only 1950 to 1953, and mind you, we stayed there longer, but I think till 56.
We're going to be talking about the Legion's important role, what is coming up in Duncan, ceremonies coming up on November 11th, after we take a brief break.
Jean Crowder, Nanaimo Cowichan. Today we reflect upon the suffering and loss of life that are the results of war. We remember our veterans, honoring what these men and women have fought for and continue to preserve. We must take courage from their example and commit fearlessly to ending the causes of violence. Let us keep faith with their words, "Never again," as we struggle for a more peaceful future, lest we forget.
I'm with Bill Hampson for our program before Remembrance Day, and we're talking about military history. And Bill is the writer for many of these Cowichan veteran magazines. There's a historical piece. Bill's responsible for that, as well as many books on military history. You know, one of the facts that I learned as I was reading through your material, Bill, was about the Pacific Coast Militia Rangers, and I don't think a lot of people would know about this. Very fascinating, colorful aspect of BC history. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. The Pacific Coast Militia Rangers were formed in 1941, and they were created as a result of the attack by the Japanese at Pearl Harbor, and also a lot of the Japanese actions during in and around the Straits of Juan de Fuca and up the BC coastline right down to California, where the Japanese were attacking shipping. Here in British Columbia, they attacked a lighthouse. They shelled a radio direction finding installation at Estevan Point in Vancouver Island, and torpedoing a number of U.S. merchant ships in the Straits of Juan de Fuca. And so the Canadian government, and the invasion of the Aleutian Islands by the Japanese. So these were considered possible threats, and so an unconventional kind of organization was formed. It was usually from volunteers, those that were not quite fit for military service. These were usually older individuals, and in some cases later on younger members joined. But basically they were civilians that were subject to King's regulations or the Code of Military Discipline. They were volunteers. The Canadian government offered training programs to teach them basic guerrilla warfare skills, and basically they were to patrol the coastline of British Columbia to prevent an invasion by the Japanese. Also, their job was to patrol the interior of British Columbia as well, and they're looking for what they called fifth columnists in those days, but we call them terrorists today. Okay, and so they were, that was one of their jobs.
Bill Hampson is our military historian, has written many books on military history, and we've been speaking about the Pacific Coast Militia Rangers. We also want to talk about the Legion, its important role, and it bridges a gap culturally, the Royal Canadian Legion, doesn't it?
Well, the Legion, you have to remember that it was formed by a different generation of people. Most of these people had experienced war, and World War I, World War II, Korea, and so there was a lot of camaraderie here in the Legion, and the Legion provided all kinds of different services for them. It helped them out with pensions, it helped them out with acquiring artificial limbs and so on and so forth. So it's right now looking after that generation. The unfortunate part about it is the younger generation, those that have served in Afghanistan and places like that. It's a very not well supported kind of institution. It's more of a cultural void that has existed between those who had served our country in the various wars, and this new generation. They don't know how to interact with each other, I think, at this point in time.
Well, one thing for sure, on November 11th, usually the community comes together around the Legion, and the service will be happening in Duncan, it's starting at the Cenotaph.
Yeah, it starts at the Cenotaph, and there's a march pass through by the Legion, and they end up at the Valley Senior Center, where there's a reception there for Legion members and veterans and guests.
We know the Poppy Fund is well on its way. Poppies are available in Duncan at most of the banks, convenience stores, grocery stores, and so on. What are you hoping on November 11th to come away with? New experiences, because you're fairly new to BC and new to the Cowichan Valley area, Bill? And what do you hope others are going to gain from participating or observing services on the 11th?
Well, I think what I'm attempting to do with my approach to the bulletins is I'm trying to promote BC history and BC personalities, and give them a sense of accomplishment, you know, and something that we can, like I said, I produce articles. My next couple articles will be on, for this edition, will be on Hampton Gray, who was born in Trail, and also he was a Victoria Cross winner. We'll talk about the Pacific Coast Militia Rangers, the history of them, and their perpetuated unit, the Canadian Rangers. We'll talk about those things, and so what I plan to do, like in December, I'll do the Alaska Highway, the building of the Alaska Highway from Edmonton through British Columbia into Alaska, and so on and so forth. So I'm trying to give readers a little bit of variety, and also to give them something that they really didn't know about, or so that's basically what I'm attempting to do. I've also done an article on John McCrae, the person who wrote the in Flanders Fields, the poem, and so those are, like I said, those are sort of things that I've done as a preamble to the Remembrance Day. I've done some articles related to Remembrance in the October edition, and I'm also a continuation of articles that pertain to Remembrance in November's article as well.
Thanks for watching Go Island, Cowichan Valley. We're here at the Cenotaph, which is located very close to Canada Way and Government Street. We hope that you will enjoy the Remembrance Day ceremonies. We hope to see you next time.
Go Island is brought to you by German Auto Import Network, Men's Wardrobe by DG Bremner & Co., Menswear and Accessories, Hair Services provided by Salon J,